Yay. Hi. Welcome,
Hi.
Annelise Loevlie.
Hi, Nikki.
This is magic. I am really, really excited to be here with you and having this conversation and having it recorded.
Yes, me too. I've been looking forward to this.
Yay. How are you feeling today?
Um, I'm feeling good. Yeah, like I was saying, this is my second day giving my son to a friend to nanny. She's a nanny. So yeah, it feels a little weird and a little naked without him. Like I'm always looking around, but no, I feel good. My energy is good and I'm excited to yeah, talk with you. Just dive
Yeah,
into it a little bit.
love that. You look great. You're glowing.
Oh, thank you.
And we have,
No showers for a few days.
ooh, and she glows. And we have so many enlightening and in-depth and organic and vulnerable conversations. So this feels really natural, and I'm excited to have it be recorded and have it be shared. So thank you for joining me and taking the time. I know this time away from your son is precious, and you get mommy time. You get Annalise time, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So nice. So needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you growing through right now?
Oh, I had a feeling you were going to ask me this question. Um, I mean, obviously, motherhood is the biggest answer, and that's such a huge general idea.
Mm.
Um, and I would say, though, within motherhood, it is structure and like mundane and the mundane as ritual.
Mm.
Like I don't tend to have a lot of structure in my life. I never have. I've never had a job where I had to like be at a certain place at a certain time. Um, and schedules have always been really tough for me. So that is really pushing me. Like I wasn't expecting that in in motherhood. Just really like needing to maintain a consistent schedule for myself and for Jack, my son. So that's one thing, and then the other is, yeah, the mundane as ritual, and as like, right before this call, I was mopping the floor for, like, the 4th time this week. I used to mop the floor, like, once a month. It's like, it's just wax on, wax off. Every day is, like, the same, but very different, and, like, keeping a tidy house for me is, like, really important, so I'm doing that all the time now, and it's just, yeah, being really mindful about making it uh, a pleasure ritual and, satisfying and a little meditative. So, yeah, I feel like those are, and then also this, like learning to balance mothering and returning to myself, or getting to know myself, who I am now as a mother and as a human outside of that. So yeah, it's a lot. I'm growing through a lot, and I'm watching my son grow through a lot too. So it's just wild. We're both on this kind of like we're both brand new people right now. So it's
Wow.
quite a bit
Oh, every day.
every day, every day. And they say they. I always love saying that, but a woman, when she gives birth, basically for like up to 3 years, it is um like scientifically essentially like she's being reborn. It's like this fruitful, super fertile time to rewire and like build your entire system. And it's really interesting. I'm working on some really deep core restoration, like physical core restoration from giving birth. And it's such a cool metaphor. It's like deep breath work and stuff, so it's just you really are growing every single day, and it's a cool concept to have in mind of like, man, I can like literally rewrite my story right now, and because it's just fertile for that. So that's cool. I could nerd out on it for a while, but I'll stop.
Full body chills.
Cool. I
Like,
wish that we talked about this more, you know, like, and not to like launch right into motherhood or anything like that. But like the opportunity that exists, like, you know, when you birth a new human, you birth two new humans, really. And um,
mm,
yeah, so I'm just like really taking advantage of this opportunity to, yeah, to like discover the new me, you know?
let's lean into that because if it's not shared enough, let's share it. And
Yeah.
imagine I've seen so many of my friends go through the process of motherhood, and there is this dying of old identity and old self. And that's got to be really hard to let go of. Do you feel that? Are you processing through that? Obviously, you're awakening into a new person. Do you bring what you want from the existing life you had? Like, what's that marriage of this transformation look like?
Yeah, great question. You know, I grieved quite a bit when I was pregnant. And part of the decision, because, you know, I had a decision to make as to whether I was going to sign up to be a mother. It wasn't planned and it was a big surprise. So I really like made a conscious decision. And in order for me to come to that decision, I didn't know this, but I have really like had to work through a ton of grief
Mm,
um, and fear.
mm,
And those were kind of like protecting my old way of life. Like I didn't want to jump into this new pool, this new deep end, because I was really afraid, and because I didn't want to lose my life. I loved my life, you know. I've had a really amazing life so far, and so yeah, the first like 8 to 10 weeks of my pregnancy was full. It was like nothing but processing and grieving, and it was not conscious. It was just I was kind of praying every day for the fear to dissipate, and I didn't know what I needed to do to let that happen, but I was just continuously showing up to ask like, whichever way I go, just please like clear the fear so it can be revealed, you know, whatever. And yeah, what came from that was just a lot of deep grieving,
mm,
um, and a lot of release of fear. So that was pretty cool. And then once he was here, like once we went through the birth portal, which was just incredibly empowering, I really haven't looked back at all. Um, maybe I will. I mean, I'm 7 months into it. I'm sure in like a year, I'm gonna be like, God, I wish I could just go out, you know, and like party or whatever, have fun and not worry about a kid. But I'm still very much in the like postpartum phase of I don't want to be without him. I have no desire to like go on trips without him. You know, I don't have any desire to live the way I used to live. So um yeah, that's been really interesting. And I don't know if that's because I'm 40 and have like lived a lot of life. And so I feel satisfied with that, um, or what. But yeah, it's been really interesting, like how aligned it feels for me right now.
mm.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. And then finding who I am in this new chapter is interesting. And I think it's gonna take some time, but it feels really good to like have very rooted priorities now, which I also never had, being a pretty wild and free woman for my whole life. I didn't know which, you know, what was that important to me. And now I have like pretty solid values that you and I talked about a little bit, and obviously a very important priority that like is unshakable. And
Mm.
that feels really like grounding to me and really cool. So
Do you, looking back, feel like the biggest part of the fear was losing independence?
yes, totally. I had this idea of motherhood as prison, basically, and that's such a strong word, but yeah, of losing independence, of becoming isolated, of becoming invisible, of becoming forgotten, and yeah, of just sort of like fading into the background, because I have seen women do that, and our society really doesn't do much to support the opposite of that, to lift mothers up and to support them and things like that. So yeah, it was a lot around that. And that's been really interesting to kind of discover the truth for me in that reality. And my mother, like, thank goodness for her. She was like, she never pushed me in either direction, but she was like, becoming a mother was the most freeing thing I've ever done. And I was
Oh,
like, oh wow.
wow.
Yeah, especially when I was talking about like the prison sentence, and she's like, I don't know, it was the most freeing thing I've ever done. And yeah, so I see that now, because yeah, you just get this like fierceness and like not give a fuck anymore in a lot of ways. Again, I'm a very new mother, so but that's what I'm feeling so far. So yeah, it's pretty wild. It's such a cool experience.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like so you and I have known each other, just to set a little precedence for, we've known each other decades, and we've run in the same circles and had, similar
Yeah.
friends, similar activities, a lot more parallel than we've realized, or, back in the day. I don't think we recognize it as much as we have in the last few years, with our spiritual growth being very aligned, which I think is
Yeah.
so beautifully connecting us. And we've just been able to lean on each other, like, I'm going through this and it's heavy, and what do you think? And so I just have loved witnessing this transformation in you and seeing you go through every layer of it, and working through your own relationship with your own mother, and working through your relationship with yourself, and your core group of people, your core group of friends and besties and business partners, they're also all having kids at the same time. Do you think that that's helped support this newfound journey of parenthood, where you guys still get to be cool and fun? And me,
Yeah.
like, to watch it from the outside, I'm like, oh yes, hell yeah, we can be older, quote unquote, right? Like
Yeah.
40 is older for us. And what is it, after 35, you're like geriatric pregnancy, which is such
Yeah,
bullshit.
but don't listen to that.
Yeah, but it's just so sad that that's how that's labeled. So now here you guys all are in similar ages and on similar paths. And has that helped you feel supported and not pushed aside, or be in this prison that you thought you'd
Oh,
be?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And Ben and I were talking about it the other day. Ben is my business partner, for those listening, and we've been best friends for geez, like 30 years, which is so wild.
Oh my God.
Best friends, business partners, you name it. And
Mm.
yeah, he was one of the last people that I called and told that I was pregnant before I like made the decision, because I knew that talking to him was gonna like really push me towards keeping the baby, just because him and I have always had really parallel lives. And I didn't want to be swayed by him, because I like really love and respect his opinion so much. But yeah, now that I came to the clarity on my own, but now that we're doing it, it's so amazing to, yeah, just connect on this level. And yeah, we're dreaming of like all the cool stuff we can do with our kids and do it together. And yeah, it's just wild. It's so wild how that all happened. And I'm so grateful for it, because this is not something to do on your own at all. So
Just really quick, was he and Tiff pregnant with Selah?
yeah.
Okay. So oh my God.
Yeah, so
I
yeah,
can't
that's
call him
why.
enough.
Oh
What?
yeah, well, yeah, that's why I knew he was gonna be like, "Oh, do it, we can do it together."
He was full on. He's
Yeah.
like, two of my best women in my life are pregnant at the same time.
Yeah.
I could just picture his face lighting up and being so
Oh,
excited. I love
oh, I know. It was so cute. And then another friend, Scotty, too. And yeah, everybody's been so supportive. We've all just been really supportive of each other. And it's really cool to see how different everybody parents. And it's a really great lesson in like accepting differences. And
it.
yeah, and just knowing that like we all love our kids and the children in general, infinitely, and we can all be really different in how we approach it. And there's just so many metaphors to all of this. But yeah, it's so cool.
So cool. And you and I have had multiple conversations about like, let's run away and start a commune. And
Still
maybe
in for that.
I am too. I am too. And maybe this is a new way of kind of like bringing that to light where you are a bit of a village raising each other's children. And I can imagine so much influence. And I think the one thing we talked about with this commune setting was like doing it together as a group, as a collective. When
Oh,
one mom's just exhausted, we have another to pick up, or when somebody's good at something, we can balance with the other. Like we all just come together. And I know you believe this too, but that's the separation of humanity right now. It's like this lone wolf and doing it tough and not asking for help. And it's so demoralizing when you think about it. Like, why are we doing it that way? So are you feeling that sense of community with them, even though you guys are kind of all living fairly separate physically?
yeah.
Is there a bit of
Oh,
a collective there? I mean, always because of partnership and best friendship, but is it
right.
now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about what like community means nowadays when we're not all living in like physical proximity to each other, because it is different.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we have like a little group of moms for sure that we ask each other questions all the time and share and things like that. So that's very supportive for me. Um, and uh, yeah, like I was raised just like you in a small mountain town, and I walked everywhere, and every single person in the town knew me. And like my roots there are so deep. And it was like a really special experience. And I've been wondering if I am going to be able to give Jack that experience of like real kind of old fashioned community. And that's like yet to be determined. But what I do know is that this web of like love that has been created over the past 20 years through my life is going to support us kind of wherever we are in the world. And that feels really cool and kind of modern and new. So that's one way. And then, I am working really hard on cultivating like a physical proximal community here too. Like at my house, there are I have neighbors like 3 houses down in each direction, and we all just take really good care of each other and stuff. But I guess that would be another thing I'm growing through is community, because it is the absolute most important thing for me right now in my life is like having support. And so yeah, it comes in like digital connections with my friends that are all across the world. It comes in um, my neighbors and people right here. And then it also comes in, and I've been like thinking a lot about this, but like these funny services like getting your groceries delivered and things that like, they're modern conveniences. And yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to like really use people in a good way to like support us and to save my time and things like that. And it's kind of funny way to look at it, but like the web exists of people, and you just have to reach out and help and ask for help. So
I love the idea of having groceries delivered is a way of asking for help.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Having your groceries delivered, getting like your house cleaned. If you can, all these, obviously, I'm lucky to be able to afford these things if I need to. But yeah, it's all a way of, you know, doing that. And yeah, it's just kind of thinking differently because we don't all live, unfortunately, in a commune anymore. But um, everybody wants to help each other. We
Yeah.
all want to help each other.
And we'll work on buying that big piece of land and having somewhere we can go. And maybe we don't live there full time, but I'm working on it. Let's work on it.
Oh God, I know. Yes, please.
In the boat, maybe. Oh, somewhere.
Ugh, I
On-
know.
I don't know.
That'd be so fun.
So I really admire that you brought into the first part of the conversation that you're finding ritual in the mundane. And it's really timely because yesterday was World Meditation Day. And my post was meditate when you're doing dishes, meditate when you're
Oh,
driving, meditate when you're teaching, cleaning, all the things. Because as we like make these moments feel present, the
mhm.
body starts craving it. And of course, the carve out of the 5 to 30 to 60 minutes of solitude and quiet and meditation and journaling. Everybody would love that every second, I think, once we start getting used to it. But that's not always real life, especially in new motherhood and business and life in life.
Yeah.
So, on top of that, are you able to carve out time for like the deeper ritual and the deeper practice that I know you love?
I haven't yet. I haven't returned to that yet. And I'm not sure when I will. I know I will, but it really is much more of an ongoing sort of meditation for me now. And it's and that's what's working for me. And it's kind of cool. Like, I mean, of course it gets exhausting. I mean, we all do all these things every day. Like dishes never end, laundry never ends. None of those things ever end. Um, but yeah, it's kind of cool. And I've added a lot of gratitude into this like ritual too, and it helps to have Jack because I'm constantly like telling him what I'm doing, or we'll walk down into our garden to water it or weed or whatever. And and I always say I have a little water running through our property, and we always say like thank you to the water, and we always say hello to the trees and like watch them grow. And so he's like definitely helping bring a presence to me in a way that I have never had before. And not all the time. Like that's a huge challenge actually, but like when I'm there, it's like amazing to just be super present with that. But yeah, to answer your question, no. When I get some time away from him, whether it's when he's sleeping or, like today, um, when he's out, I'm either zoning out for just a minute, like scrolling on Instagram or whatever. I haven't figured this out yet. Or, I'm busy. So still kind of figuring it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure at some point I'll return to that deeper state. But my attention is so outward right now. It's crazy.
And I feel like what's I'm feeling like this sense of that you have this really strong foundation of self because you established this practice beforehand. And I know you were really leaning into it during pregnancy and through all of the what felt probably like chaos at times and confusion and grief. And um now it's there. It's like embedded. You're doing a walking practice of it. And I love that. Like being aware, being present, being mindful, pointing that out to him creates that energy that we're looking for in this meditative practice. So maybe it won't ever return to exactly what it looked like before, but I will say in reflection to that, you're doing it. You're living it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Nick. And I feel that, I don't feel disconnected spiritually at all. Um, and I kind of equate that to, like physical working out,
Mm.
for example, also because I'm definitely not doing that either right now. Like I'm not doing yoga for 60 minutes 3 or 4 times a week, or going on big hikes necessarily. I used to do that like 4 times a week too, or running. And I will get back to that, I think. But for now, it's like, I mean, having a baby is very physical. Just you're picking them up all the time, and balancing and hauling shit. And so it's pretty physical. And also I don't know, like 10 years ago, one of my like mentors, he said this thing that I just say all the time. We were like on a run, and he was older and he like hopped up on the curb and like ran on the curb for just a little bit. And he's like, it's all practice. No, it's all training. Sorry. It's all training. And I've just taken that to heart too. Like in your day, yes, you can go to the gym for 60 minutes or whatever and have a good workout and it's very concentrated and focused. Or you can spend like 12 hours of your day reminding yourself that it's all training. And every time you like bend down, you inhale. And every time you stand up with a big baby, you exhale and keep your posture going. And, it's like, again, it's just a whole other level of presence that is kind of like very cool, or like walking upstairs. And the best way to do that when you're carrying 30 extra pounds or it's like, yeah. So, and I've always liked that way of living, and meditating and working out and keeping strong. I think it's like a very lifestyle oriented approach. And then I don't feel guilty about not spending, an hour a day doing it. It's just like, oh, it's sprinkled in throughout the day. So yeah.
And maybe it's giving you more than that 60 minutes because it's more consistent and you're embodying it. And actually you using the word practice instead of training works perfectly too. Like it's a constant.
Totally.
And
Yeah, that's a really good point.
whatever. Like I think that they both can work there and
Yeah.
that practice. Life is that journey.
Yeah.
So that's really, really a great
Yeah.
part of life to be conscious of every single piece of the movement and every breath and every
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. Yeah, it's wild because I am at this a little bit of a precipice right now with like my body because just like you, I've been a lifelong athlete and then had the baby and really took it slow and low for like 3 months really. And so I'm just getting back into it and I have noticed how my body has changed and how my posture's changed and I'm like, "Oh wow, if I keep going this way, like I'm going to lose a lot of my structure and strength and like foundation that I've built for most of my life." And so I'm like choosing now, like very consciously to do what I was just saying. So yeah, it's cool. And I think that's going to serve me for the rest of my life, just being way more conscious of all this stuff. Because I didn't ever really have to think about it before.
Mm.
But now that I'm like rebuilding and coming back to it, yeah, but it's good. It's just part of it.
And you want to feel good. It's that feel
Yes,
good, right? Like I think before in our younger years, it was how we wanted to look. Very
totally.
externally focused, like the aesthetic of the body. And now, I mean, for me, and what sounds like what you're explaining, it's like, how do I want to feel? How do I want my posture to feel? Am I like poised and feel strong within? Or am I like flexing and trying to, I think we talked about this once, like engaging the abs to suck in the stomach and like,
Yeah.
then you're just clenching. It's this
Yeah.
piece, or can we just be like soft but strong at the same time and embody this
Mm,
masculine feminine balance and embody it all together in as many moments as possible.
yeah, totally.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for. And I want to be able to hang out with Jack on a mountain, in 20 years. So
Uh, let's talk
yeah.
about that. So you're a big time skier, obviously, and you got back on your skis this year, yeah, after he was born. Yeah.
Yeah,
How
probably
was
skied like 10 times.
Did it feel good?
Felt so good. Yeah, it felt so good. I love skiing. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, it felt great. And it felt really great to like not obviously it was an epic season that I missed out on pretty much all of it, but it felt good to like not worry about that. It's like, oh, thank God I have a distraction.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, it goes back to I think like being 40 and like, man, I have skied all over the world in some of the best places and some of the best conditions. And so it feels okay to like sit this one out, or sit most of it out. But oh yeah, but I'll be back out there stronger soon.
With a little guy.
With the little guy. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that. I know there's so much to open when it comes to your career path and your journey with Icelantic, and there's definitely a few big moments that stand out for me. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that started and the passion for skiing and what that's meant for you and how that's grown to where you are now?
Yeah. Geez. It has man, it's been 18 years since we started
Wow.
Icelantic. I
Oh,
know, isn't that it's wild.
no,
Yeah, I know. So that is crazy. We started it 18 years ago. And it has hands down been the sort of vehicle to my spiritual becoming, for sure, in a lot of ways, because it is something that I committed to in a really deep way. And I'm just reflecting on all of this and sort of coming to realize all of this. But
Mm.
because we started it with, there was 4 good friends from middle and high school who all started it together. We all had very different, distinct roles and different contributions. And we all committed to it in our own way. And I think doing that with good friends and um, not even knowing what we were committing to, but just knowing that we were going to build something together has been just an incredible sort of journey. And so, yeah, Icelantic has turned into a really special Colorado brand.
Mm.
Um, and I think it's representative of the lifestyle here and of our lifestyle. And it's cool. I've been, like I said, reflecting. And as you know, I just am coming off of a year and 3 months off, fully off on sabbatical. So I've done a lot of reflecting, but it's really interesting. And you'll see this as you continue to build your business, that everything is a reflection. I mean, as within, so without, or as above, so below. Um, Everything in your business, if you're creating it, is an exact replica or reflection of what's going on inside of you. And it's just so cool to see what like the original founders of Icy and the OG crew, like it's cool to see that Icelantic is a product of like all of these hearts and minds just kind of like following their calling a little bit. Yeah, this is very like weird general speak that I'm speaking, but anyways, I'm coming back into Icy right now after a year and a half basically off, and after 18 years of doing it. And I am in charge of facilitating the buyout. So we're planning on buying the company from the investors. And so that's going to be a new journey. But yeah, I'm like kind of ramping back in and again figuring out who I am now and what this means to me, what what it even means to like own something. Ownership is a big theme right now. But yeah, I mean, I could talk for days and days about Icelantic, obviously, but yeah, basically we grew a brand together with a good group of friends, and we've gone through several chapters already, and now we're turning the page on a really big chapter. And we're about to dive in again to like who we are, what's important to us, what are we bringing forward into this new rendition. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It'll be really, yeah, interesting and a lot of work because we have new generation in the company now and it's a new world. And yeah, I mean, we haven't centered ourselves since, before COVID. So it'll be interesting to explore that.
Big new chapter.
Huge.
What
I
I
know
love,
it's like hard to even talk about. Like that was a big question you asked.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
So, but yeah, there's a lot in there, and we can.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go all the directions.
Yeah. Totally.
What I love when I reflect back is that, it's a ski brand. And so, of course, it was built with this love of skiing and the mountains and nature. And that's always seemed to keep you guys at a foundational core that held you together. Although each individual really beautifully added their own piece of the color or their own piece of the energy and stuck true to that.
Mhm.
And we're authentic in that, right? Like you have your artist, you have your CEO who then switched over to you, right? Like Ben started off because he was the creator and then realized that wasn't his role. And then this really like massive transformation happened when that was handed over to you, taking on a whole new role. But what I love about that was you stayed true to yourself. And I remember there were big times where, of course, that was so hard. Female CEO of a growing, ever so growing, so quickly growing brand.
Mhm.
And this is a new journey as females and in the ski industry. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, that industry feels so male dominated. So,
Big time.
right. And there was a couple of pivotal moments where you were bringing emotion into the boardroom and you were helping these people see what that looks like without it being weakness.
Mhm.
And if you feel called to touch on that a little bit, because I've always really loved and respected that from you and been so inspired by that, that you were like, this is how I'm feeling and I'm going to say it, I'm going to share it. And it might feel weak in the moment, maybe, or I know we're going to grow a lot from it. And I do know that those men transformed a lot. And I know that it's brought you guys even closer and they were able to find their feminine and their softness, but then still continue to grow this really strong, powerful brand. So it's a lot of, I don't know, a lot of moving parts, but with this foundation of a love for adventure.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for saying that, Nick. Yeah. Yeah, I again, and Ben and I talk about this a lot, how like we laugh, like we've never had any idea what we were doing, and we've like very rarely had like a lot of uh, intention is the wrong word, but like what you're saying with me expressing myself and my emotion, especially in like boardrooms or in my leadership role or anything like that, was never preconceived. I was never like, oh great, here I am now and I'm gonna, it's just what came out.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to the commitment
Mm,
thing. Like, I committed to doing this, and wherever it took me, I was gonna stay. And another mentor a long time ago taught me the phrase, wherever you go, there you are. And so that has been like such a huge driver for me. And I was lucky in a lot of situations, or I don't know if luck is the word or right place, right time, but to be asked to be on big boards, of like the industries um, association, or, several nonprofits, or now I'm working with the government on some things. And starting when I was like 25. And a lot of times I was the only female in the room. And
mm,
a lot of times I would, you know, speaking amongst like all these much older, very powerful men. And it would be, my perspectives or voice would be so opposing to what they were talking about, or like, that a lot of times I wouldn't speak for like several years, and then I would start to speak. And a lot of times the emotion that came out was just, I would cry, but it wasn't because I was like sad or anything, but it was like fear, pure. And that was my like reaction. I would speak and my voice would shake and I would cry. And but then what came out of my mouth was very important, to be on the table or whatever. So it was very awkward, like metamorphosis, and it was working through a lot of fear. Um, And that's the same at Icelantic, like different situation. Obviously, I'm not sitting around a table with a bunch of like, you know, much older, very powerful people, but my peers, and it's almost even more intense when you're with your peers and people who know you and love you, and you're making hard decisions and important conversations. And yeah, something in me just continued to say to just keep going. And I was also given this piece of advice at one point that, like, if you're sitting in a room in a conversation, and you're invited into the conversation, or, you're there to contribute, if you ever if your palms start to sweat, or your heart rate increases, or you feel a frog in your throat, that means you have to speak up. You have to. And that was always like another guiding thing for me. And even if I sounded like a total idiot, I always stuck to that, like, reminder, if like there was something in me and then I started getting nervous and sweaty, I'm like, fuck, I have to say it. I would do it. And it was awkward. But like you said, I think, like, me sort of leading by that example, again, that was not conscious, but allowed other people to talk and open up and share and things, especially, when it wasn't comfortable or when they were afraid. Or so yeah, it has definitely created a culture of, like, safety is a really important sort of value for me. And yeah, acceptance or inclusivity or whatever. I think safety is the best word to describe it. Like, you're safe here. Whatever you need to say, please say it. Like, you're not going to be judged. You're not going to get in trouble. You're just, if it's important to you, say it. So yeah, I am proud of how that aspect of the culture has evolved. And yeah, I think something that I talk about quite a bit is that, yes, I'm a woman, so that can easily come off as like, oh, this is female leadership style. And maybe it is more natural to us, but I love that I work with mostly men because, like you said, it's, this example is just inspiring the feminine yin quality of leadership in them too. Like, you don't need to be a woman to lead like this or to be like this. It's just the society has been so far on the end of the spectrum of masculine, head-centered, sort of rational, linear thinking, and we're going to come back to the center. But yeah, I could talk about this topic all day long too. But
same. Maybe we do a whole pod on it.
I know. Well, you and I could talk about everything for so many topics for a long time.
You
But yeah,
said something that just really, I've been honing in on a lot. It's like, no one really knows what they're doing. And the second piece that popped into my mind is Nick Rowley's daughter, who's rocking the snowboard world as a 6-year-old. And her whole thing is do it scared.
oh, I
Right?
just got chills. Yeah.
Too. And do you feel like when you got that piece of advice, when your body is having a physical reaction, that's an intuitive thing? What is that connection?
Great question. Well, I mean, do it scared is such a great kind of answer to your question, is like, I mean, and especially in safe situations like that, we're not talking like launching off a cliff if you feel weird about it.
Right.
Don't do that.
All the time.
But if you're in like a safe situation, it has something to do with this, or in relationship, or in community and commune and whatever. Yeah, do it scared. I totally just forgot what your question was, but that has been, I've never said it in those words, but yeah, absolutely. Like, start sweating. And because we're all just so afraid of of like being different or being seen as different or being called out as stupid or, you know, all of these things, even if you're not conscious of it or not, like that's in you. You know, you don't want to be the weirdo to like disrupt things or make things, you know, stop or slip, you know, all these things. And I know for me, I was working with a bunch of very driven alpha people all the time. And that's not my personality. So it was hard to insert myself in that way.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so do it scared. I kind of love that.
Yeah. I bought
Yeah.
her hoodie and I wear it and I just love it. People are like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." They have a little merch thing. So cute.
Oh, that's so cool.
Um,
I love that.
I think I was curious what your reflection is like. Why does our body react that way? Is it just protection? Is that like ego trying to steer us in a different way? Is it the sign that we should act? And if we get
Right.
closer to that, that's a signal, right? It's our body telling us something, which is sending us signals all the time.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'll think about it more, but what initially comes, it's our ego protecting us, you know, from, like I said, being called out or being seen as different or being crucified or not crucified. What happened to the witches? You know, I mean, being killed essentially for speaking up against what, you know, I think it might be really deep in our nervous system to, especially for women. And again, geez, I'm not going to go into this like wormhole of that, but I think for sure with women and our voices and speaking out is we are conditioned to be quiet because a long time ago we were really punished for speaking out and speaking our truth and, you know, kind of going against the grain of what society was saying. So I think that that's part of it is protection and survival for sure. And I think a big part of kind of coming back to ourselves and back into our power is recognizing that that we are actually not, you're not in danger in a situation in the boardroom. You're not in any danger. So like feeling that fear and knowing that it's just old programming for survival, most likely. And then working through it anyways. I think that I literally am just spitting right now. I was I don't like sit in the boardroom and be like, oh, this is my survival mechanism switching on right now. But yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not that long ago was our voice not being able to be heard. So it's really probably pretty new, only just a couple generations. So we are healing that. And
Yeah.
do you feel like, and I'm sure I know the answer to this, but each time you did it, you kind of start repatterning, you build that safety within, especially if you're doing it in a safe place, not with quotes. I didn't mean that like that, but just like in a place where you felt like, okay, I'm not going to be crucified. I can
Yeah.
speak the truth. And this is that practice for me doing it more and more and more. And then do you grow confidence from that? You're not then all of a sudden not breaking down and crying when you're speaking in front of a group. Is that what builds that resilience for you?
Yeah, I think so for sure. Like, um, yeah, absolutely. And it's wild that after, you know, I probably started doing this very consciously when we started Icelandic, or not even, probably a few years after we started Icelandic. So I'd give it like a solid 15 years of doing this like painstakingly existing in this realm of like a business world and me being like a little hippie child and with different values. And yeah, I mean, I still every once in a while get really nervous to speak up in like certain situations and but absolutely like nothing compared to 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Um and I know not everybody has this, you know, specific fear or whatever, but for me, yeah, it's been a process of like titration and like gradual repetition of this and yeah, building up the confidence. It's cool to reflect on all this. I haven't like really done it. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, and maybe somebody doesn't have the fear of this specific thing, but we all have fear,
Right.
right? And I think that if you're pretending like you don't, you're hiding even more, in my
Mhm.
opinion. Um, if there's somebody that's in this place where they're ready to open up. They've planted some seeds. They know that they're ready for something new, this next big step. They're feeling that fear. Their palms are sweaty. They keep holding back and not leaning in. Maybe they don't have a safe space. Are there practices that you remember that you were leaning into then? Did you just, you've mentioned multiple mentors. What would you suggest to somebody that's ready to take this next big step and the fear is just debilitating?
Great question. Um, and I have a simple answer, but it's not easy to do at all, but is to get curious about the fear and give gratitude for it, towards it, to it. Um, and that is not easy to come to. It's really easy for me to say, but that has been my practice, you know, um, leaning in to the fear. That looked a lot different to me 10 years ago than it does now. But yeah, I mean, if possible, notice when you get scared, when your hands start to sweat, when your heartbeat increases, and try to breathe into that and experience the fear. Because what I've learned so far is that all emotions just need to be seen and heard and experienced. And this fear, is probably very old inside of you, might even be inherited from generations previous to you. And it just needs to be seen and loved, really. Not that you have to like love it right away, but just experience it if you can. And that can be as little as one breath, just staying in it before you immediately divert or change it or yeah, or run away. And then if you can also, you know, be grateful for that fear because it's there for a reason. And when these emotions come up, they're ready to be transmuted. Um, and then in that same sentence with gratitude, for me, it's also been just being very grateful for where I am, because so often when you want this big change, you want it now, and you're not paying attention to what you actually have in front of you. And I know this is like very common knowledge. This is not anything special, but it's really powerful to give thanks for what you have now and really feel it, even if it's just one thing in your life that you can be like, feel the appreciation for this thing, because I think that it's yeah, until you are grateful for what you have now, I don't know if the universe is going to give you more. you know so that's a practice that I'm working on a lot right now. But yeah, the leaning into the fear for me has been absolutely like transformative, and I'm still working on it every day. There's yeah, fear or other resistance. It's very sneaky what it is actually that's standing in your way. Like, I can't fucking stay on a schedule for the life of me. I'm still working on it. Like, you would never. I'm like, who'd have thunk this was gonna be like my challenge right now? Like, I'm not having a very hard time parenting or anything, but it's just like this schedule thing is like, whoa, so
Whoa.
wild. Like, I've done a lot of hard things in my life, and this one's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, wild. So
That's amazing advice and reflection, and how easily we forget how far we've come when all of a sudden there's a next big goal and we want to push ourselves to that next level. And just, it's so ingrained in us that you easily don't take the time to go, but wait a minute, I'm like 10 steps ahead of where I was last year, or last week even. And so I really love that reflection piece and to feel it. I recently read that our emotions typically cycle in 90 seconds. So if we
Yeah.
keep that in mind and go, okay, this fear could last 90 seconds. Let me decide what I'm going to do at the end of the 90, however many breaths I can do in between that. Maybe I journal a little bit about it. Maybe I come back into my body, feel my presence, have a moment of gratitude. And if you still feel scared shitless, maybe you don't say anything at that time, but you've at least reflected and felt it a little bit more instead of just like completely running or numbing or like shutting down or telling yourself all the horrible things about yourself that probably aren't true. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
totally.
hold on.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And like along those lines of, I love the 90-second thing. I've heard that before too. It's like dogs have, uh, yeah, they run through their emotions like in a second. It's like, good work, buddy. So do little kids. It's insane. You should see little Jack. I mean, he's bawling 1 second and like the next second he's laughing hysterically. You've seen it. But with that reflection time, and since you're a yoga studio owner and teacher, and you've dabbled a little bit now in like plant medicine and stuff, this idea of integration and just like a shavasana occasionally in life,
Mhm.
that's a metaphor, but is so important that, especially now that I've taken like a very long sabbatical and had this, it's just, that would be another like thing that I would just sort of encourage, anyone to do a little bit more often, is to, especially after big things, is like take a moment to like receive it and let it settle into your body. And yeah, that's just something that I think about a lot right now.
That and mixed with have the tantrum. Maybe you do let
Absolutely.
the anger out. Maybe you do
Oh,
scream in your car. I saw this hilarious meme with this duck with his mouth wide open. It's like, have you tried screaming? Like sometimes we do need that childlike temper because look at how quick Jack moves through it because he's
oh,
emoting, because
yeah,
he's about it, because he's crying about it.
yeah,
And not that you're going to completely get through it, but at least it releases some of that energy. And then maybe you lay down in Shavasana and then,
yeah, absolutely.
without
Yeah.
looking like a total crazy person.
Yeah, totally.
Or maybe not, I
Well,
don't know.
oh my God. Ben, Ben's my business partner for anyone listening who doesn't know. And he is like he's kind of like a baby in the best way, in terms of like just being really present and being emotive. And but we always like joke, we've always joked forever that, and maybe this is going to be inappropriate, but it's not actually inappropriate, but we always say Ben just needs one good fuck and he's good. And that means like when he gets mad at something and he just kind of yells and kind of storms around for like a minute or two, very aggressively, not like physically aggressive or anything. And he's self-aware, but it's like he gets angry for a minute and then it's done. Like done. There's no like, remaining residue or anything. And it's like amazing to witness. And he doesn't take it out on other people either, but it's just he emotes.
Right there.
Yeah. And it's like amazing to witness. So yeah.
If we did more of that and like whether it's like write it down, whether it's scream for a second, again, that 90-second cycle. And I think on the other side, like feeling joy too.
Oh, yes.
Like the dance and the party. And we
Yes.
just had an ecstatic dance at Harmony. I was so freaking nervous going in. I got your message afterwards too. You're like, I love ecstatic dance. I think I was just nervous because it's my space. It felt like a smaller space. I didn't know a lot of the people. It unleashed this just like inner beauty and joy in all of us. It was so
Oh,
fantastic. And I recognize like, where else do we do this?
yes.
Especially as community. So for him to not be afraid to emote like that in community, especially around his employees and his business
Yeah.
partner, like permission slip, feel the feels,
Yeah.
let it
Yes.
run through you. I really love that.
Totally. I really love that you just said joy too, and that's something that's new for me the past couple years. Like I was always like, oh, I gotta let my tears out and I gotta let my sadness and grief out and everything. And That's
Mm.
all true, and anger and things. But yes, what's come to me recently is like, I also really have to express and feel my joy and all of that stuff. Like that's almost more important or equally important as important. So I love that you said that. Thank you.
What do you think held you back? Because I've been thinking about this a little bit, and I'm curious, like, what was that container and that, just like, I don't know, why do you think you resisted feeling all the joy?
Yeah. I mean, I've thought about this a lot. I have never really felt like I deserved to be happy. And that's from like old stories and old beliefs and things like that. So that's one reason. And then secondly is I have been afraid to lose it. Because if I feel it and live it, then I know I'm going to lose it. And that's absolutely true. And it's just like being sad, like you're not going to be there forever. And if you're ecstatic, you're not going to be there forever either. So, it like feeling. So now when a big thing, and I know we're almost done with our time, but a big thing for me when I feel big emotions now is to integrate it into my body, whether it's fear or anger or joy or whatever. It's like if I have a big release in therapy or something, like I always do something very physical afterwards. It can be like a 90-second plank to the point where like my whole body shakes, but this is like integrated, or I just shake or dance or whatever. And
Mm.
I do that when I'm feeling strong emotions so that my body is like included in the processing of it all. And that's been also very transformative for me too. So yeah, feeling it all because the body really does keep the score, I think. I'm no Gabor Mate, but
Yes, you are.
it's all in there. It's all in there. Holy cow.
Well,
Yeah.
and emotion, energy in motion. And it
Yes.
wants to move, it
Yes.
wants to process, and the longer we hold on to it and don't feel the full spectrum of all of it, we're really cutting our experience short
Big
or
time.
less than it could be. And thank you for sharing that about the joy, and how interesting that there's any inclination of programming in there that like, I don't deserve that. And I just think you sharing that out loud is so powerful, and people will absolutely relate to that and go like, but wait a minute, we are deserving. We deserve joy.
Oh,
And yeah,
yeah, we
do.
do. I know. I just got so many chills too.
And speaking of staying on your schedule, we're going to keep you right on schedule for your
Yep.
next retreat.
Thanks, Nick.
And I absolutely loved this. Do you feel complete? Is there anything else you feel called to share?
No, we really covered a lot. We really did. So thank you for asking me about like motherhood too, because that is obviously big in my life right now. And thank you for not and like I'm glad we journeyed away from that too, because there's so much more, you know.
Yeah. And
So yeah, thanks, Nick.
we'll come back around to all of it at some point.
Oh
And
yeah, for
love
sure.
to keep this conversation. It really filled my heart, and I know so many will grow from it. I grew from it every time we connect and interact. We plant seeds and we help each other pull weeds, and my whole
Mhm.
spiel of like tending to the garden so we can grow together. And I'm just
Yes.
really grateful for our connection, our relationship, our sisterhood. Grateful for you.
Yeah, same, Nikki. Thank you.
You have a good meeting. We'll talk soon. Love you.
Okay,
Bye.
sounds good. Bye bye.